Welcome to AI Weekly. You know, if the last year in AI was all about just marveling at what's even possible, well, this week felt like a bit of a reality check. We saw this really fascinating clash between what AI can do and what we can actually trust it to do. So let's break down this tension between raw capability and credibility.
So what does that really mean? It means that on one hand, we saw these incredible algorithmic breakthroughs that are making top-tier AI cheaper and way more powerful than ever before. But on the other hand, the very foundation of user trust got a serious shakeup, and one of the godfathers of the field asked a really fundamental question about the future of intelligence itself.
All right, so here's what we're going to dive into. We'll start with a new revolution in efficiency. Then we'll look at a two-front challenge that hits on both trust and the very nature of intelligence. After that, a huge leap forward for visual AI. And finally, we're going to talk about a specific year that could be the big economic tipping point. Okay, let's kick things off with the biggest headline of the week, efficiency. For years, the story of AI progress was pretty simple. It was all about massive, expensive computing power. But this week, two major releases showed us that, well, a whole new paradigm has arrived.
The shift here is pretty fundamental. We're moving away from just brute force, just throwing more and more expensive GPUs at a problem, and moving towards something more like algorithmic elegance. We're going from a might makes right approach to a smarter, not harder one, and the results are pretty dramatic.
So how are they doing this? Well, the tech behind one of the big breakthroughs is a technique called sparse attention. Think of it like this. An old AI model reads a book by comparing every single word to every other word. It's exhaustive, but incredibly slow. Sparse attention, on the other hand, teaches the AI to read like a human, skimming for keywords and focusing its computational attention only on the most important bits.
And the result of all this? By using this smarter algorithm, DeepSeek just slashed its API price by over 50%. Now, this isn't just a sale. This is basically the democratization of high-end AI. It's opening the door for countless more developers and businesses to get in the game. And this efficiency revolution isn't just about cost. It's also about capability. Anthropic's new model, Claude Sonnet 4.5, can now work on its own on complex coding tasks for over 30 hours straight. I mean, that is just a staggering new benchmark for AI endurance and focus. This is where you really start to see the real-world impact. When you have an AI colleague that can plan, code, and test tirelessly for more than a full day, you enable the rise of what people are calling the one-person company. A single developer could now, potentially, build and maintain software that just a year ago would have required an entire team. Now, right as the industry was celebrating these huge gains in efficiency, two major challenges popped up. The first is a crisis of trust between AI companies and their users, and the second is a fundamental debate about the very soul of AI. First up, the trust crisis, which people are calling GPT-gate. Reports started coming out that alleged OpenAI was, in certain cases, secretly rerouting requests from its paying customers. Basically, users who paid for the premium GPT-4 model would have their queries, if they were flagged for a sensitive topic, handled by a less powerful model, all without their knowledge. So why does this matter so much? Well, because it strikes right at the heart of the whole AI as a service business model. You pay for a specific level of performance and predictability. If a provider can just swap out the engine under the hood whenever they want, that foundational trust just evaporates, and the reliability of the entire service gets called into question. At the exact same time, a deeper, more philosophical crisis was kicked off by an absolute giant in the field. Turing Award winner Richard Sutton, who's known as the father of reinforcement learning, made a pretty stunning declaration. He believes the entire path of large language models is a dead end. Sutton's core argument is this. He's claiming that current LLMs are just incredibly sophisticated mimics. They analyze huge amounts of text to predict what a human would say next. But he argues true intelligence has to come from reinforcement learning, from an agent that takes actions in the world, sees the results, and learns from that feedback. In short, it's about learning to do, not just learning to say. And this forces us to ask a really profound question about the whole goal of this research. Are we spending billions of dollars to build these hyper-eloquent parrots that can only repeat and remix what they've already heard? Or are we trying to build true partners that can actually learn and act in the real world? And look, this isn't just some academic debate. This week, we saw Meta putting billions of dollars right behind Sutton's philosophy. They're investing heavily in robotics, not to build the hardware themselves, but to create a universal software platform, kind of an Android for robots.
The whole goal is to give AI a body, a way to interact with the physical world and gain that experience that Sutton says is essential for real intelligence.
So, while some are debating the path to intelligence, the progress in AI's ability to actually perceive and create our world is just undeniable. In fact, this week really felt like a genuine GPT-3 moment for visual AI, as the technology crossed a major threshold in both quality and capability.
The two big visual releases this week really complement each other. On one side, you have OpenAI's Sora 2, which focused on realism and interaction. It can now generate video with synchronized audio, and it even has a cameo feature that lets you insert your own image seamlessly into a scene. Then you have DeepMind's VO3, which showed off a deeper cognitive leap with something called chain of frames reasoning. This lets the model understand context over time, moving it from just drawing a scene to actually understanding the narrative happening within it.
Okay, this brings us to our final and, honestly, maybe our most consequential point. With all these advancements in efficiency, intelligence, and capability, a core researcher from the legendary AlphaGo team has put a date on the calendar for when all this starts to reshape our economy.
The prediction from Julian Schrittwieser is direct and it's specific. 2026 is the year. He argues this is the tipping point, the moment when AI's integration into the economy becomes widespread and frankly undeniable. And he isn't just guessing. This is based on extrapolating current trends. Right now, AI capabilities are doubling roughly every 7 months. At that pace, he projects that by the middle of 2026, AI models will be able to work on their own for a full 8-hour workday. Just think about that for a second. And by the end of that same year, they're expected to hit expert-level performance across several key industries. And when you remember that Claude can already work for 30 hours straight, and DeepSeek is making this kind of power dramatically cheaper, that timeline, it suddenly feels very, very real. This is no longer sci-fi. It's a date on the calendar, and it might just be marking the beginning of a profound transformation.